I am Raisa Nazaire. I am a well-being coach, an author, a podcast host. I do the Power of Balance on Podbean, and I am a mental health advocate throughout everything that I do because I see that mental health is spirituality. And this series called Mental Balance is a juggling act is based on my book of a similar title. It's called Balance is a Juggling Act: How to Start a Revolution for a Change in Thought. And in this series, we are currently in phase 2 of the book. Self observation is the phase. And today's topic is day 12, well-being concept, which is please do not feed the fears. And so I'm here with my co-host Widgeby, and today we're talking about fear. And why do we need to talk about fear? And that's because we generally abuse the message that this emotion has for us. We think that we can't survive if we feel the fear, so we don't even want to talk about it. So you know what this made me think of? That song "We Don't Talk About Bruno" from Encanto. And Bruno wasn't intuitive with the message, and fear is one of the densest emotions and has the strongest energy for action and message for us. And the fear itself acts as a guidance system that shows us what we have to overcome in order to be safe and to be balanced. And the adrenaline is that energy that comes with fear. It gives us the energy to find solutions. It's really just helping us to, well, we can take the time to feel the fear, to transmute it into a higher energy that will help us move forward. And it hurts us when we always try to stuff down the fear, and that's what causes energy blockages in the body that turns into illness. So instead, we can learn to acknowledge and face fears and transcend them and live a happier life. Okay, so let's talk about fear. Because in a society that we live in, we are constantly being pushed a lot of fearful stimuli. We've got terrorism, war, pandemics, inflation, and we have to have the ability to live to a higher energetic level of frequency. It's just so crucial right now. So we need to learn how to liberate ourselves from fear. And we can see out in the world that the external fear factors are actually escalating. They're not going away. And what we expected tomorrow may not be here tomorrow. So we have to be able to self regulate and balance. And also, those of us who are able to hold the space of balance for those who are in fear, we need to be better able to do that, because when we're in fear mode, or others are in fear mode as well, the body is really just focused on survival. There's almost no room for creative solutions about what's going to work or what may not work. The body's just going through what it knows has worked in the past, and it will even tap into ancestral trauma to find an answer for what it thinks that we should be doing in the moment based on the past. Um, but the truth is that fear is really a mighty messenger that alerts us when something has to be done for preservation of some part of our identity. And it's giving us the emotional energy to move through whatever obstacle that we have right before us. It's our job to not get stuck in fear, in fight, flight, or freeze, and to tap into that energy to allow it to carry us through the the lower or denser energies of fear and start to transmute it into lighter energies to find a solution that's always there on the other side. It lets us tap into possibility. And when we think about fear, we know that fear is just another aspect of love, but it just doesn't recognize itself as love. But we don't recognize fear as love. And in a previous session, we spoke about all emotions being an octave of love, and with fear being a lower and denser emotion. And one of the things that I like to do in each of these sessions when we talk about a specific word or topic is to just define it so that we're all on the same page. So the definition of fear is defined as an unpleasant, often strong emotion caused by anticipation or awareness of danger. It's characterized by significant central nervous system arousal. The sympathetic nervous system is engaged in full force, and that's where we go into fight, flight, or freeze. Fear says that there's danger present and gives us the adrenaline to escape it. And we don't, when we don't use that energy, when we don't transmute the fear or move through it, that's when it starts to hold the unlimited possibility that is always there in the present moment hostage. So I think about the acronyms for fear. There are two. And on a spiritual level, when we identify as spiritual beings who are having a physical experience, the acronym for fear is false evidence appearing real. So that's true when we look at it from that perspective, because our true self isn't disrupted by the fear that our personality would want to dwell in. And so aligning to our true self helps us to elevate beyond whatever dense emotion we might be feeling. And so when stuff comes up, we have a choice to either go home to our true self, the truth of who we are, or to run away from that self. And when we're burying fear down deeply in the body, in the mind, the body, that's when we're running away from it. Yet, when we are being our true self and living in the present moment, there is no fear. Fear and emotions of all types, they are all changing and fleeting things. They are an extension of time and space and duality. And so we know that on a spiritual level, right? But on the mundane level, which is where we are most of the time, when we yield to the belief that we are something other than an extension of source, where we tend to focus on with our five senses, living every day in the world, what you feel is what you feel. And whether it's coming from a false perception, something that appears real, or not, um, it's still a perception and it's still very real. And so, on that level, I don't use the acronym false evidence appearing real with my clients that I'm coaching, because to the brain and the body, it's just real. And the brain can't tell the difference between a false or a true perception. Its job is just to send the message to the body for protection, and it does that. It does that based on past experience and wired neural networks that send a quick message to take action. And so what I prefer is to use as an acronym for fear is face everything and rise, which means that we get to feel the fear, we get the message, use the energy, and then change, shift, transmute the lower vibrational energy so that it can rise to a higher frequency emotion, and even as we said previously, you don't jump from a lower level emotion to a higher level of emotion. For example, from fear to love, you go through stages. You may go through from fear up to anger, disappointment, boredom, and you move over to the upper side of the emotional scale into contentment and hope, or well-being. as you move up into love. But what we're doing is transmuting the energy into a higher frequency. And once we become aware of the low potential thoughts that come with those dense emotions, such as fear, it becomes easier to allow those thoughts to start to recede into the background without taking on that energy, not attaching to it. And so we don't let the emotions dictate to us or fear dictate to us at its lower level. We can hear the message that it has without processing it or becoming attached to it. So, so there's so many avenues to the definition of fear. And so I want to stop here before continuing to see if there's anybody who wants to add on to that.
Yeah. When you were talking about the four F's, I was, you know, I because we do in Abundance Portal, we talk about the Kundalini awakening a lot, and here it's important to note that this part of our, our evolution is normal response, and in a way, we may not have as much control over it because the is part of what's being activated or part of the body we just don't have conscious control over. So even within like your meditation practices, within your within like whatever practice that you would say, okay, um so that I can get used to what this feels like. One of the things for me I've learned is that notice the emotion of fear, and being like, okay, what does fear feel like, so that we're sort of detaching with the idea of being afraid of fear. So and notice I'm saying being afraid of fear, because if we're saying, wait, isn't fear being afraid? And in a way, no, right? Fear itself, the emotion is a bit more complicated, because we are feeling it because the body is releasing a lot of hormones, because those hormones are needed. The body is super activated, and when you're in fear, it the body really is like, okay, we're about to expire, we're about to die, so we must all of these extra strength, extra extra health, everything gets active to make you a superhuman. But because we are not used to the sensation of this emotion, we become a prisoner to it, hence why the freeze. However, if you can sit inside of the emotion and start to learn, well, what does fear feel like? What do I feel like when I'm in fear? So that you can become friends with it. It does become something that is not as stressful, that you're not as afraid of. Again, because some part of this, depending on when your fear get activated, it is the body directly responding to its environment, the brain responding to any danger that's going on to basically save you. So in a way, the understanding, whether it's a low level fear, or and we definitely don't want to be in sustained fear. This is where it becomes toxic for the body, because remember, the body's releasing a lot of hormones that's there to help save you, so it and fast. So if it's in a sustained manner, then it's going to exhaust itself, and it's giving you this burst of power so that you can get away from whatever situation, the imminent danger. So understanding when you are in fear, understanding what that feel like and how to use it is very important. So when we're looking at the 4F, it's very important to decide, which way is going to help me burn this energy in a productive way, fight, flight, or fear, or freeze, so that I can, one, save myself, but also get the body to understand what it needs to do, what kind of response it needs to do, so that we can move back to an emotion that is more conducive to healthy living. Let's put it that way. Yeah, wholeness.
Yeah, wholeness, definitely. And I added another F fight, flight, freeze, or and
Oh,
freedom.
you said
Because when you
freedom. I thought you were gonna
transmute,
say the fuck word.
oh no.
Because that, see, remember, it's like
Oh yeah, that's another
that
way. Just
is
look
the
at it, right?
right.
That's
It's for
disregarding it. Yes. But
right,
freedom, that's part of freedom too, because
isn't
in
it?
freedom, you're saying, I'm going to transmute this energy into something that is going to benefit me. You're not stuck, and and you still have the ability to be clear enough to take responsible action. That's freedom.
Yeah, no, no, absolutely. Because the the main hormone that gets released is the sex hormones. There's other hormones that get released by the brain as well, but the sex hormone in massive amount. And so understanding like why fuck would be part of it in the four F's, because the sexual energy is like right there to say, okay, here I'm ample, you can use me. And of course, one of the key to using sexual energy is to for regeneration. We usually just use sexual energy for sex, and not a physical sex, I should say, not for regeneration as it is meant to be used. So just to say that as well, throw that out there. In that
Right,
we
right,
shouldn't be afraid of the word, fuck anything. So yeah, wholeness.
right. Wholeness. Okay, so yeah, what do we fear anyway? What is throwing us into either the inability to move forward, or the freedom to take action that's going to be helpful? And because we tend to run away from all heavy and dense emotions such as pain, separation, rejection, humiliation, uh, failure, etc. I wrote an article about this on my blog. It's called by the same title. Let's talk about fear. And some of the emotions that we fear, I provided some insight there on those emotions or energy in motion and what they're telling us. For example, pain. Pain tells us whether it's physical or emotional. All we know about pain is that it hurts, but see what happens when you feel the pain, because it's showing you exactly the area that needs to be healed. And we can use focused energy and other healing techniques to focus the to the frequency of that pain and begin to heal, whether it is emotional or physical. Separation is another form of fear of what we fear, whether it's by death, divorce, a breakup, a move, which is separating you from someone. Separating is leaving behind what you already knew, and setting yourself up for something that's unknown. Most of what we fear is centered around the unknown. And if we can allow ourselves to let a separation to just be okay, or the unknown to be okay, it's a way that we're more easily able to move forward. Another thing that we fear is rejection and humiliation. And those are probably our greatest fears: the fear of rejection by the masses of society, friends, family, etc., when others are thinking that we are unworthy or that we're fake. And so, again, we can see what happens when we, regardless, move forward with our own inherent integrity. Did I talk about separation? I think, yeah. Separation, rejection, humiliation, and failure. Failure is another one of the big things that we fear. But there's no self growth if we don't have failure, because a lack of failure means that you never sought to change. And change is an integral part of life that helps us move forward in life. So when we look at things from the perspective of failure, we can shift that to see what happens when we allow failure to be a building block to the next step instead of a subtraction from our sense of worth. And one of the other things that we fear, another big one, is a loss of self identity. And when we make how we define ourselves about our age, our health, state of our health, the relationships that we have or are in, the work that we do, how much money we make, how educated we are, whatever the case might be, uh, it's not our true identity. But if we make those things our true identity, we know that those things are subject to change. And so, again, we set ourselves up for disease and failure when any of those things that are fleeting and changing are, if they're lost. So we can see ourselves stepping into new things, new aspects of our identity and new possibilities, so that we show ourselves that there can be something greater there rather than something lesser. It's not a loss of identity, it's just a shift of identity. Um, there's that saying that when you keep staring at a closed door, you never get to see the door that's open.
I like that. Yeah, if your only limit is seeing what's not possible, then you're not gonna be able to see the impossible, right? So you're not gonna be able to see the opposite side of it and everything. So, um, to me, yeah, I definitely like that. When you're staring at a closed door, you won't see it open, because from the other side, it might be look open, which is very interesting about perspectives. I like the differing perspectives that we can look at things, and so that even a thing like fear, when we start to look at it and really look, open it up, there's so much there that we can benefit from. Yeah. So wholeness.
Wholeness. So I'm going to read from day 12 in the book, Balance is a Juggling Act, How to Start a Mental Revolution for a Change in Thought. The book has 40 mental well-being concepts. We take one each day. We read it in the morning and we write down our thoughts, expand our minds. In the morning, we will jot down info based on what we read, how we're feeling. And then after having practiced the concept during the day, we do an insight summary, an evening summary and insight game. And so please do not feed the fear. Since day 12, it says feeding fear, like feeding the bears, can land you in trouble. Fear relies on you for survival. Like adding logs to a fire to keep the blaze going, you have to keep generating fearful thoughts in order to sustain the emotion of fear, or any emotion for that matter. The more fearful thoughts you have, the more fear escalates. Hesitation, procrastination, self criticism, and doubt all feed fear. Constantly listening to news programs also stokes and escalates fear. You can de escalate the situation by acknowledging the following. One, fear is your internal alarm system. Thankfully, it tells you that action is required to deal with potentially harmful stimulus in your environment. Yet, much like an alarm that goes off at the wrong time or stays on too long, prolonged fear eventually causes distress. It diminishes your immune system. Two, if you do not manage your fears, fear will determine what you can have and experience in life. All the fearful and low potential what if scenarios that run through your brain can easily be replaced with high potential scenarios. Focus on high potential what ifs. Three, rather than jumping from fearful thought to a fearful emotion that results in fearful action, feel the fear and listen for its message. Knowledge is the antidote to fear. Once the balancing action is realized, fear is released because there's nothing left to fuel it. The practice of ceasing to feed fear helps you maintain power and energy. The mental adjustments made to cope and move forward rather than stay stuck in emotions determine the degree of equanimity that can be experienced in even the most traumatic situations. And the action for the day is today, when the fear alarm goes off, find the message that fear is sharing, then proceed responsibly. Any questions or comments? Okay, so someone raised their hands. Okay, is it Baginski? Alexander, welcome to the stage. You're kind of low. Can you move closer to your speaker, your mic? Is it just me? Whichby? Can you hear?
I can't hear him at all.
Okay,
Okay.
all right. I'm gonna mute you. Yep, and we'll see if we can get back to you. All right. So unchanneled worry, or well, I'm gonna take a step back. There are lots of ways to feed fear, and a few of the things that escalate fear include simple things that deal with not just your emotional health, but your physical health as well, such as skipping meals. For me personally, I've noticed that I get this nervous energy that starts to ramp up when I've skipped several meals, especially when I'm doing something stressful. And when I eat something that is nourishing, let's just say it's a healthy salad, I feel the energy from the food that just takes me to another level, and the fear just shuts off immediately. Eating processed foods is another way to escalate fear because your body's not getting the nutrients that it needs to keep it in a state of balance or equilibrium. I saw something on Instagram the other day. It said a Big Mac doesn't cost $3.99. It costs you your health. So think about that. Uh, uh, were you going to say something?
I was tapping my mic for clapping.
Oh. Another way that you feed your fear is, as I mentioned earlier, trying to bury it. Whether you're self medicating or just pushing it down, you're causing blockages in your body. So the fearful event, the feeling is there for a reason. And we need to take that next step, as stated earlier, transmute that energy to move through it. Move and not moving your body also helps keep that energy stuck and stagnant. Consuming too much sugar is another way to feed fear. Not drinking enough water. Dehydration is bad for your body overall, but it's also bad for the neurotransmitters in your brain. They're not able to make that connection to leap from one cell to the next cell, and therefore the proper information and energy is not being transmitted when we don't have enough water. The body is 75% water, at least, and the brain is also part of the body, and it needs that same amount of water in order to function properly. What else feeds fear? Constant checking in with the media, checking on negative news, just hearing the same thing over and over. Remember, for those of us who are old enough, when the World Trade Center buildings fell, and they kept showing that over and over and over, and people kept watching
The
it, and they
the
didn't.
re-trauma.
Yes, they
The
didn't realize that
re-trauma.
they were just being traumatized over and over and over and over. And that's what we get with the news. Like somebody else died, someone else was shot, someone else was stabbed, murdered, whatever. It's just trauma after trauma after trauma. And that is what keeps fear alive.
Including, funny enough, even in small places like Clubhouse rooms where trauma is being shared by anyone on stage or otherwise. So just being mindful and aware that when you are within a space and this is happening, the person is telling their story, you are taking in that as well. So yeah, wholeness.
Yeah, and there is a way to tell that story so that it has the mention of the trauma without dragging people into the trauma, and ending with a solution that is uplifting. And a lot of times we don't find that in rooms.
Right. And I remember getting kicked off, or like kicked off a stage where this room had they were doing a room, and of course they're right, so it's everyone's prerogative, but it was a telling of their stories of trauma stories, and it was, energetically, I ran into that room. It was one of the dreadest thing, and you can feel, so just imagine like how most of the people in this room were being re-traumatized. For me, it was worse the people who were not, who were just sitting there for day two of the same thing without any of the healing. Sometimes, if you are doing something like this, you can. However, break with music, break with breath work, break with a healing session,
Hmm.
anything that you can, so that it's not trauma after trauma after trauma. Again, like you say, you can share, and then give the resulting, we're not all in living in that traumatic space. So if I'm telling the story, I have to say how I got out of it. And um and it's not necessarily about the crying, because well, you're not in that traumatic space. Why are you currently crying? So if you're currently crying, that means that you're getting a response from your body just from telling the story. So you have to ask yourself certain question. Well, what is being released right now within my body, that is making this reaction? Because remember, like Raisa just said, the body is not doesn't differentiate, and so we have to be very mindful within our own consciousness that you raise your consciousness like you would a baby. So the way you treat it and the way you are responding and letting it respond to you is your direct responsibility. So wholeness.
Yeah, yeah, truth. And another thing that feeds fear is giving our power away to another person or an entity like the government, or just allowing someone to make you enraged is a form of giving your power away, or letting another person sway our emotions or make decisions for us. So, any form of fear, I think I said this earlier, is not wanting to deal with the unknown. And again, we're watching. This section of the book is observation. And so we want to see what happens when we shift. And in this case, when we shift our perspective of what unknown means to something that is fearful, because unknown means we don't know what's going to happen, to unknown meaning opportunity that's waiting for us that we just need to tap into. And as balanced beings, we can make self-care and transmuting that lower energy or thoughts of fear into something that is going to move us forward versus feeding the fear. And yes, it takes practice, but it's something that we can embrace as a lifestyle so that it becomes automatic pilot, just like often the feeling of fear is automatic pilot. We don't even know what we're afraid of sometimes. We're so used to and addicted to the feeling of fear that it just pops up as soon as an unknown pops up. And so as we said earlier, there's always solutions and tools to help us to deal with whatever it is, or any instance that we need to raise our vibration or the frequency of our energy. And so some things that help us to release fear is one, simple: trust yourself. We know that everything changes, and we can stay focused on the long term, because as everything change, things are in the moment and fleeting. If we can hold our vision of well-being, our our reality is an inheritance of the thoughts of our body, of the things that we speak, and in our mind. We can hold on to that and hold on to that vision of the future. It helps us to move forward, like walking down the steps of the yellow brick road versus being stuck on the fearful thoughts that occurred based on things from the past. We can do breath work. We talked about that a little because I just find that it is so crazy how breath work helps us move through every difficult thing in life, like moving through childbirth and labor, through stress, through anxiety, whatever level of fear that might be there. The breath helps us to push through to the next level, and we just don't respect it enough. That deep belly breathing that pushes oxygen and energy into our bodies, into every cell in our body, helps us to release fear. We can breathe in well being and breathe out release, and release that fear and let it go. And it's also helpful to observe where fear shows up in our body. Is it the pit of our stomach where we have that sinking sensation, or if we have diarrhea, pain in our lower back? It's generally the solar plexus area. And the solar plexus chakra is the seat of our personal being. It's where our personal power emanates out of our solar plexus chakra, and it governs our confidence, our clarity of mind, our ability to take responsibility for our actions, and essentially how comfortable we feel in ourselves and our bodies, in our opinions, and just our being in general. And the organ where fear emanates is from the kidney. So um, I learned about releasing fear from the kidney from Widgeby, and so I could talk about it. But when I have the teacher here, I'm going to pass that over to Widgeby so that she can tell us more about how we can recalibrate the energy here in this center to improve our mental, our physical, our energetic, and our spiritual health.
Awesome. Thank you. So yeah, we wanted to also break with a little bit of exercise that you can take away with you and whenever you need it to, to release fear. Um, One of the last things Raisa said was like the organ associated with fear was the kidneys. And the kidneys are ear looking organs. They look just like your ears, but they lower in the back. So think about where your navel, your belly button is, and just go straight back and a little bit lower. Um, from that line is your kidneys, and they look like on both sides. So you have a left kidney and a right kidney. And people might be familiar with kidneys because a lot of people have kidney disease. It's like diabetes and all sorts of, or even kidney stones. And sometimes they might be pre-diabetic and having issues or have issues with their adrenal glands, which has, let's say, if people have prostate issues, that's also directly connected to your kidneys. So very important to maintain a healthy kidneys to well, it's important to maintain a healthy all of the organs, but kidneys especially because this organ is associated with the energy that's our earth energy. That this energy that's our the energy from mom and dad, from our physical mom and dad, and so we really want to cultivate the chi that's within the kidneys because it's not infinite energy. It is a finite energy. We actually come in with a certain amount of energy in the kidneys. And so if we spend all of our time in fear and we are spending this energy constantly, we run out of it sooner. So that means your lifespan can be reduced if you are spending too much energy, literally wasting this energy through fear, through a lot of the traumas that we can suffer, because of our experience. So it's very important to know how to release the fear. And in releasing, what we're looking to do is to release and obtain the energy that's more balanced energy, that will help you. If you're not doing a sexual practice, the sexual practices can help you because they can put the sexual energy inside of the kidney, so that you'll use that versus the chi that's inside of the kidney itself. So it's very important to understand, okay, well, I don't want to expand my kidney energy, but I still need energy. Where can I find this energy? And that's like your sexual energy. And I think somewhere I had a room today where I said sometimes we are using the sexual energy for sex, not using the sexual energy um, for regeneration, because we can use the sexual energy for regeneration. So here, when it comes to the kidney, it's a very simple exercise to if you're sitting, sometimes it's important to sit correctly. So if you're sitting on a straight back chair. You can sit on the first third of the chair, just very simply with your feet, laying on the ground. So we won't get too complicated because I don't have a diagram. But if you can now, when your feet is lays on the ground, you sort of connect with the earth with that. And so because you want to exchange of the energy with the earth, because our body is like a conducive, right? So it takes in negative and positive energy. So we get the positive energy from the earth, and then the negative energy comes from above, right? So we want to bring down the negative energy into the earth and then pull up the positive energy into us, right? And so this becomes like this exchange of energy that balances us out, right? So with the kidneys, we're talking about all of our phobias and traumas and fear as the negative energy that is being, because it's working. Again, we say negative energy not as a bad thing. It's just the strength of that feeling of it. And in understanding the strength of that feeling, we don't necessarily vilify it. We can become friends with it, right? So here, what we're looking to cultivate is a calmness, a stillness, and a gentleness. The reason why is because the kidney, the energy here is water. And water, if you think about like how much water there is in the body, we had started this conversation about being like 70% of the body or more, even, and the brain as well. So now, hence why we are in this constant feeling of the fear, because this is what water feels like. So when we feel fear, we're literally feeling the waters inside of our body. And the secondary organ for the kidney is the bladder. And so, we pee all the time, but the bladder also brings the energy throughout the body from the feet. That's why we want to put our feet flat on the ground, because that's going to connect our bladder meridian to the kidney, right, and all the way to the top of our head. So now here's this energy that's able to flow. And so if you're sitting on this chair, you can open your arms, and as you open your arm, take a deep breath in. And then what you're gonna do, you're gonna give your knees a hug, right? As you give your knees a hug, you're gonna exhale out. But as you exhale out, you're gonna do like a chew sound, like a chew, like you were blowing out a candle, like. So you take another deep breath in, breathing in. And what you do when we're breathing in, we're going to breathe into the kidneys, breathe in, breathe in, breathe in as much as you can. And then when we exhale out, we're going to again do the chew sound, hugging our knees. As you do this sound, hugging your knees, you're going to imagine all of the fear, all of the trauma coming out of your kidneys, going into the earth, coming out of the ears, because that's the sense organ for the kidneys, coming out of the ears and going into the earth, because we want to share this energy, right? This negative energy, we want to give it to the earth, because the earth loves the negative energies, right? Because it can transmute it, it can use it, Remember, we don't vilify the negative. We're going to say, okay, oh, this is the negative energy. Let me give it to the earth. And then in turn, now the earth is going to give us so the positive. So we breathe in, taking in this beautiful oxygen. And when we exhale out, we're going to exhale out all the cloudy, gray, murky energy and giving this negative energy of fear, phobias, and traumas into the earth. Like we're blowing out a candle, deep breath out, 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 out. Extend that energy into the earth. And then breathe in again, breathe in. Giving fear, trauma, and phobias to the earth. Just want to open your arms and take a deep breath as you straighten up. Breathe in, deep breath in. And let's hug our knees as we exhale out, pushing the kidneys in the back out. See that murky, cloudy gray coming out of your ears, out of the kidneys into the earth, sharing this gift of energy with the earth. Breathe in. Breathe in, deep breath in, open your arms. Exhale out. Hugging our knees, gifting the earth with these negative fear, phobias, and traumas. Breathe in again. Cloudy, murky chi, go away. Breathe in. Last breath, breathe in. Fear, phobias, and traumas out of the kidneys and into the earth. And now what we're going to do, we're going to place our hands on the kidneys. So both hands on the back. So see where your belly button is. Place your hand on your back and feel for your kidneys and connect with it. As you connect with it, make your breath again just regular, but being mindful of the energy within the kidneys. Breathing in and breathing out. And as you are tuning into the kidneys, feel your feet, feel your connection to the earth. Breathing in and breathing out. And now imagine the kidneys surrounded by this deep blue light of healing, just like the dark, deep depth of the ocean, right? Where the ocean is dark blue. It could be the ocean at midnight. Or like if you ever see the ocean in the distance, it looks really dark blue and very calm. Breathing in. See this light surrounding the kidneys, healing it. And this calm water coming in and out. So that's the energy of calmness being gifted by the earth into you. The gentle wave of the ocean coming in from the earth and healing. Feel the stillness of the well-being. And take this practice with you whenever you need it, whenever you feel fear. You can breathe in 30 times, 36 times, 27, 36, 18, 9 times. You can breathe in, let out the fear, and then connect with the kidney and the earth and let in the positive stillness and gentleness. wholeness.
Wholeness. That was wonderful. Thank you so much, Sweet Pea. And just to add a little, as people, bring themselves back into the present moment. In traditional Chinese medicine, the emotions are narrowed down to just five basic feelings or emotions that are aligned to a corresponding element. You mentioned water and an organ in the body. So, for the liver, it's anger. For the emotion is anger. For the kidney, we just delved into fear, and for the heart, it's joy. Sadness and grief is the lungs. Worry is the spleen. If I left out anything, go ahead and add on. But I also would like to leave time for the audience to chime in about either the discussion today or the meditation.
Sure, the heart is impatience and cruelty. Sometimes we get very
All
impatient.
right,
Yeah,
did the opposite.
yeah. The well, it does the positive is the
Yeah.
joy. Joy. Um, but very important to understand that we contain both negative and positive emotion, and so we can transmute both, right? Both one to the other. And so when you are feeling low, worried, or sad, understand you can transmute that energy. Just breathe it into the earth, and the earth will take in that energy and then give you the positive energy in return. So very important to understand the practice, because sometimes we may feel helpless in how we feel. We're like, oh wait, I can't, I'm sad and there's nothing I can do about it. Well, yes, there is. It may take you some time to get into the practice, but you can transmute energy, and yeah, so wholeness.
Yeah, it's opposite sides of the same coin. We hold it all within our hand. On the low side of the kidney, we discuss fear and anger, and on the high side, it's kindness and generosity. Any comments, questions, Alexander? Let's see if you're able to
Can you hear me
be
now?
able to be heard.
Can you hear me now?
You're still really low, but
Oh, sorry.
let's give it a shot. Let's see how it works.
I just wanted to. Thank you first of all, and thanks for the qigong, Wiki. Um, but I wanted to mention the law of input because you mentioned watching news can create fear, and I've learned about this thing called the law of input. Like, no matter what you take in, music or movies or what you read or what you hear from others, it turns into your ideas and your beliefs, and then that becomes your actions, and that becomes your character. So I guess it all starts with us, like what we decide to put into our minds and our bodies through food or anything like that. Thank you.
Okay, so I'm just gonna repeat what I heard. For those of you who may not have heard clearly, Alexander was referring to the law of input, where what we put into ourselves becomes our ideas and our beliefs, which become our actions. And he added that it all starts with us. Simplified version, Alexander. Thank you for that. Anybody else? Questions, comments? Okay. So I would leave you with the thought, and that's don't be handcuffed by bad habits when we actually have the key to unlock the greatness that's within us. And we shouldn't allow our fears to push us around. We can make them allies because, as stated, they have a message for us. And not only do they have a message about why we fear what we fear, and how to transcend that, it gives us the energy, the adrenaline to transmute the energy into a higher, less dense emotion so that we can move through whatever the challenge is that is before us. Fear is a great tool. It's an ally that we can work with. And so if we're led by the dreams in our heart, the things that we want to have happen in our lives instead of the things that we don't want to have happen, we can take fear by the hand and allow it to be the ally that helps us to move forward, and trust that there is infinite potential, there's infinite possibility, and there's more than one door. That door that's closed is not for us, not meant for us to be fearful of. We can be patient and let the intelligence that's in our heart guide us. Which be
Yes, no, absolutely. I see all of the emotions, right, as our allies. The
Mhm.
emotion, the movement, the motions of the elements, and we are made of elements. So therefore, this is us. Like when you are feeling fear, you're literally feeling yourself, and depending on where you are and what's going on within you, that's what you are feeling. So understanding that and embracing you, yeah, basically gives you a different perspective on how to look at yourself, so that when you are in fear, you're able to transmute, go from one state to the other quicker, and not feel helpless, and basically have control over both your body, mind, and emotion. And this is the mastery of self, and yes, it is a juggling act, but at the same time, if you've seen jugglers, they're excellent, right, at
right,
balancing, and that's right, and that's the thing. So that's us. That's the mastery of us. It's not about being happy all of the time or trying to stay in the positive, because has its own downfall as well. Like, so one of the things, the heart in extreme joy is actually bad for the heart. So even though we want to be happy and in bliss, but not 100%. So those negative emotions actually help balance out the body. So we don't want to stay too long in them. And so with this understanding, it's with gratitude that we feel fear. Another description of fear is the elements themselves. When you are feeling water, you are feeling all of the elements inside of water, because fear itself is fire, earth, air, and the moving, right, the moving waters, right, like, so the rivers, which is the not just water itself, but water as it is flowing, so that's the rivers, right, so that's fear. And so, in understanding another way of looking at fear, so it's not something negative, it's the elements themselves and how it is they move throughout your body. And the reason you would feel it that strong is because, hey, this is high time. The body is in danger, or the body is in excitement, that it needs this energy, right? So, wanted to remind everyone that the link to the book itself, "Balance is a Juggling Act" by Raisa, is on top. So if you feel inclined and you want to see, oh, well, what this book all about, all about, if you been coming into the room, we are here every Thursday at 3 p.m. discussing all of the topics that's inside of the book. But if you want to get it for yourself, the link is right on top. Please give Raisa a follow. I thank her so much for coming into the space and to Abundance Portal and talking about this subject, because mental health is such an important aspect of ourselves. Instead of us looking at it always as an illness or as a bad thing, we can learn how to maintain our mental health, so that it's not about us being crazy or being described as crazy, and that understanding what we are going through in our evolution, not necessarily, oh, this person is, you give up on them, but understand that everything that we go through is part of the experience of, and it's a beautiful experience, both good aspect and bad aspect, quote unquote, of it. So yeah, I wanted to say that wholeness.
yes. And please follow Richby as well. She's a metaphysician. She and a few others initiated abundance portals. And she has morning meditations, early mornings Eastern at 6:30. She has afternoon sessions on womb healing, uh, a variety of topics, including the Kundalini, and she also has a music station here on Abundance Portals that has that energizing music that helps you heal and get through whatever lower energies might that you might be experiencing during the day. So yes, follow up with Abundance Portals as well. We
It's
thank
so it's so interesting. Yes, follow up, but as follow. You said the thing about the room, because we do play the binaural beats and the solfeggio tones, which can take away, dissolve fear, and help you balance that out. So yeah, doing sound healing is a great way of helping transmute the energy as well. So just being this, there's so many tools. I mean, now in this age that we live in, there are so many tools to help us with just transmuting of the energy, so we don't have to feel stuck in any one thing or the other. So we can move within with flexibility, right, within both side of the energy, um, and basically I would say enjoy our journey, versus like always thinking that this is something I don't have any control over. When we do, we do. So yeah, wholeness.
Definitely use those tools. We have them out there, and each tool may not work for a specific individual, but keep looking because there's definitely a set of balancing tools out there for you that will have you juggling masterfully and living your life full of abundance and joy despite what's going on, whatever is appearing before you that seems to be a problem. And so we will be closing out this room if we do not have any further questions or comments. We thank you all for joining and look forward to seeing you back on Abundance Portals at another time and joining me with Balance is a Juggling Act, or Mental Balance is a Juggling Act, at 3 o'clock on Thursdays. Wholeness.
Wholeness.
This room will be ending in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.